It's a skirt.
So Mike, how's it going?
Yes.
It's going well. You know, I think so.
You in St. Louis?
Prototypes right now.
Yeah, just trying to work. I spend most of the time working nowadays. I work in a greenhouse.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I've been.
Yeah.
I started in the cannabis industry out here, and then when I moved back to St. Louis, I got back in over there, and I've worked my way into like cultivation, and now I'm a manager of the department now.
Legitimately pro.
Yes, and it's I honestly like I was really good at science when I was a kid, but I went to so many different high schools, I didn't get a chance to really follow through and interest. And this job has really ignited like a lot of love for science and stuff like that because I've been able to do a lot of it on my own experiments. It's really fun. How's Raleigh?
Empty because the students are gone. It's
Yeah.
quiet.
Are you guys branching out into any new trails or rivers or anything like that?
Oh, we just spent 2 days on the North Fork. So that was beautiful. I'd like to stay on.
No, you were gonna have food.
So what you spend most of your summers doing?
Well,
still
you
can.
can't really hike because it takes food. Right, so we're hiking in the winter and the summer.
Isn't there like
So
vegetables on it?
we do about 400 miles a year.
Told you to find
That was 2
something.
years ago.
Vegetable free.
You know what would be interesting is like
You can get it hot fudge sundae.
because I can think of like some of the trails that I found just up here where I've seen like the best sunsets.
Or you're on a diet,
You know,
okay? Well,
it's
then
like
you
trying to
can't get the hot
like
fudge.
setting out a map. It's just like okay,
It was
these
pretty
hiking trails are
tasty.
good, but this is the best. This
Yeah.
is the best sunset.
Huh?
Where
We're on lunch?
around here?
Oh, too sweet.
There's one that's out going to
I should have gotten the
Yeah.
chicken sandwich.
and it's right by there's like an Indian burial ground right there.
I should have brought the bust of James Brown.
The bus of James Brown.
Yeah, I used to perform on the bust of James Brown. I don't know what I did with it.
Like
I'm talking about.
like a figurine?
Yeah, James Brown, you know how the, just from the shoulders up.
Oh yeah,
Like
like,
they have
a
it like the
bust.
old-
A bust. Of, I thought you
Yeah.
were saying a busted James
No.
Brown, like a James
No.
Brown impersonator.
I'm already on there.
Or just James Brown in his old age.
It could have been in that part of his career where he was a busted man.
I think it's going that way.
But it's going this way.
The bust of James Brown.
I'll bring this right back.
Gotta find out what that thing is. Bring him good luck. Hi, my name's Jason Ryberg.
Hi, Jason Ryberg.
Nice to meet you, Jason.
I did AA meeting or something for another intervention. Myself and my cohort, Max Thorn, are going to read poems at you this evening, and it is being recorded and streamed live. So,
Did you want me to read some poems?
yes, whoever wants to read tonight, I don't know. We gotta be out of here early. And now you want that Sunday, the Fud Sunday, but you can't have it. This is a poem called The Diamond Bullet of Absolute Clarity. A long pull off a 24-ounce mug of ice-cold Modelo Especial with lime and a little salt to chase down a double shot of Blanco Corralejo after doing anything for 8 hours in the sun can be at times the diamond bullet of absolute clarity, suddenly tunneling a dimensional vortex through your forehead, connecting you momentarily to the other end of time and space. And man, oh man, is that good. A barrel of rain mistaken for a small pond in the middle of Kansas. It was mid-July and my cousin and I had been digging post holes all day, which, in case you haven't had the pleasure, should provide all the motivation a young Midwesterner could ever need to study hard in school. And before the truck had even come to a complete stop, he had jumped out of the bed and fully clothed into the rain barrel next to the back porch, which he proclaimed there and then to be his own private pond. Keep out, no trespassing allowed. And there he sat, submerging himself from time to time, then slowly resurfacing like Martin Sheen in the final showdown scene in Apocalypse Now, spewing water at any man or beast that dare come near, and all the while ordering me to fetch him beer after beer and refusing to get out for almost an hour. Dark and heavy thing. Hate is an energy-sucking mass. A vampire that rides you piggyback, twisting your ear and shouting, "Giddy up, motherfucker, giddy up!" A dark and heavy thing. Viscous, seductive, sticky and sweetly narcotic. Somehow both a corrosive agent as well as a preservative for embalming whatever random arrangement of toxic ingredients and traumatizing events that should have been properly diagnosed and isolated for what they were years ago, before it became terminal. A day heavy with sirens or convict crawling through a cornfield. It's been a day heavy with sirens, horns honking, dogs barking at everything and nothing at once, and weather looming like it was some kind of harbinger of impending doom. And the TV, the phone, and the radio have all been in collusion for some time now. And there's an escaped convict crawling through a cornfield like some rough beast towards Bethlehem, Missouri, or quite possibly Bethlehem, Virginia, for all we know, to be reborn and released once again unto its own recognizance. And there's a man with a pop bottle bifocals and pencil-thin mustache, absent-mindedly stirring the heavy night air with a pocket watch on the end of a chain. The lone singularity of a thought clanging around in his head like an empty beer can in the bed of a pickup truck doing 80 down a winding two-lane county highway. And the stars are all out in full force tonight. And there's the smell of something sweet burning in the wind, and someone is cutting fat lines of crank with a stolen Costco card in the basement of a halfway house with a bad history of recidivism. Recidivism. Not a pretty name, is it? No, sir. That's one bonehead name, but that ain't me no more. Box wine and Cheez-Its. So, here you find yourself once again sleepless and stuporous, standing over the kitchen sink at 3 a.m., wearing boxers and a t-shirt, watching your disheveled doppelganger in the night-blackened window pane wash down fistfuls of white cheddar-flavored Cheez-Its with a jelly jar of chilled box wine, a rosé or blush maybe, and not too shabby for the price when you consider the mildly peculiar algorithm of existential circumstances you've woken up at the center of, here, for 3 nights in a row, in this bubble of weird, silent, timeless calm at the nebulous eye of the everyday hurricane of our lives, occurring only at the geotemporal center between midnight and dawn. No, sir, not too shabby at all. It's called the Once and Future Mad Philosopher King. The once and future Mad Philosopher King is suddenly leaping from a dream of blood and smoke on his gnarled and rocky throne at the ancient heart of the black primeval force of his mind, shouting, "My eyes! My eyes!" sending his court of woodland critters into chaos, leaving only the wind and leafless trees behind to comfort and advise him. Meanwhile, a vagabond army of the ghosts of the vanquished creeps another inch closer. Closer. It's called Thunderstorm Rolling. There's a badass thunderstorm rolling in over the state of Kansas, down from the Rockies and over the plains, chasing a 68 Chevy pickup truck barely held together with duct tape and baling wire, across county line after county line, along 70 highway. Hawks and falcons hunkered down on every tree, telephone pole, and fence post in its path. The only other vehicle on the road, nothing but a distant gleam in the rearview mirror. Baby, please don't go, crackling from the radio as the storm begins to close the distance. And the driver pulls a crumpled up soft pack from the glove box and lights up his first one in months. Lunch money versus knuckle sandwich. Time is the dank, haunted swamp upon which we've ill-advisedly built our fragile and fractious little city-state of mind. Time is the blind master swordsman whittling you away over time to nothing with a million tiny cuts. Time is the huge troll that lives under the bridge, that spans the chasm between points A and B on the flickering energy line of our lives. Horses, dogs, men, saints, outlaws, and CEOs, eagles and earthworms, the moth circling the porch light, the lone wolf on the hill, howling with the madness the moon causes him with its merciless and relentless stare. Nothing and nobody gets past that neighborhood bully without first giving up the lunch money, or it's a knuckle sandwich for sure, and not a second more of time. This is called Coming to Rest. One of the first poems I ever wrote here at OAC. Tell me, how in the world did an old rowboat come to rest here in a cluster of trees on a farm in south central Missouri, surrounded by a small herd of otherwise indifferent cows, beneath an 18th century landscape painting of a sky full of massive clouds that looked like they could crush and smother the whole scene if they ever reached their collective point of maximum avalanche density, and not a river or pond in sight. It's called Still Life of 49 Merc. There's an old primer black 49 Merc in the drive, squatting like a junkyard dog with a big toothy stainless steel grin that looks like it's absolutely dying to go for a late Saturday afternoon spin out on the old two-lane highways just outside of town, with the windows down and some AM oldie station turned up good and loud and everybody singing along to Papa Oom Mau Mau or Womp Papa Loo Bop. Then maybe pick up a case of beer and some barbecue on the way back in, and then proceed to do away with every last bit of it all out in the backyard amongst the fireflies, satellites, and stars. I'm fumbling for my shoes. It all started out damn near like a blues song, with a railroad rumble of thunder and a crime scene reporter's flashbulb pop of lightning, waking me from a warm, deep dream of a woman in my bed and a fat roll in the cookie jar up on the top shelf. But it was just me, scrambling madly from the twisted sheets, wondering who, what, where, why, when, and how, fumbling for my shoes in the cold and lonely half-dark, late for work again. It's called Front Row Center Court. It wasn't just the fact that the poor schlub had been in love with this woman for something like 6 years or so, though you'd never have got it out of him at Guantanamo even, because he just wasn't the type to throw that word around too loosely. And him always right there, it seemed, strapped into the passenger seat, or front row center court at least, for the near constant, up close and personal POV as she meandered her way willy-nilly through who knows how many progressively worse affairs with exponentially worse dudes, but also that he'd never been overly popular with women in general anyway. which, as you can imagine, only complicated and compounded circumstances gradually over what must have seemed like millennia into more of a coal-like substance, if not exactly a diamond. Thank you. Alright. It's called Still Life of Pocket Knife, Carpenter's Pencil, and Black Velvet Elvis. There was a wadded up brown paper bag with a few phone numbers and some directions hastily scrawled upon it. A brass candle holder shaped like a chess piece, a king or queen maybe, but the wax of many multicolored candles had melted it down over it over the years, rendering it mostly gender neutral by now. And a set of keys that looked as if they unlocked massive doors and gates and Gothic trunks and chests best left unopened. All arranged on an ancient card table, the kind you always got stuck at every goddamn Thanksgiving as far back as you can remember. A man snoring steadily in a kicked-back lazy boy chair in front of a Red Wings Blackhawks game. A coffee mug of Diet Coke and bourbon balanced precariously on his slowly rising, slowly falling, slowly rising, slowly falling belly, bloated with what appears to be most of an emo's meat lover's pizza. A pocket knife covered in red sauce and cheese, and the stub of a carpenter's pencil permanently fixed behind his left ear. A black velvet Elvis wearing gold wraparound shades watches over it all and keeps him safe. Thank you. All right.
Sure.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mac Thorn.
Alright, so the first thing I'm going to read from, it's called Old Farm Dog. This is dedicated to Zeus. This is dedicated to Zeus, so rest in peace. A lot of what I was going through at the time, I came here as a resident at the tail end of COVID. So there was kind of a lot of, definitely like a lot of escape and then trying to rebuild all at the same time. So it's called Old Farm Dog. At night, the spirit of an old farm dog circles my bed. When the world ended, did you sleep all day or did you wake up early? In the morning, I am awoken by gnats and gunfire. Look out the window at the farmhouse, all gummed up with barn cats ever since the early gibbous moon. Telling time only by position of the sun and angle of beer cans. No rhyme or reason to want or desire. Drinking to drink and eating to eat. At lunch, I must chew on my tongue. For the sake of the table, better yet these crackers, cheese, blueberry jam, and vanilla from Macedonia. The wood beneath it, soaked in aged gristle, and if I could eat the board itself, I would. At supper, we think of things to say in between crushing potatoes about books, music, or maybe a story of old. Small talk like a cleaning rag can only be wrung out so many times. Yet it only takes one twist to end the life of a rabbit, and even less to end the evening. At night, I hear that typing on your lap is a trick. Lounge at a reasonable pace, upright mandrake or baboon thing, giving out kindi with simple smile, limping willow grins that voyeur through window blinds. It's all about playing the game. Knowing when to throw the dice, when to pull that mint-flavored toothpick from your teeth and jam it in your eye, when to say I'm finished with this braised beef and Paisano wine, when to throw in the towel and leak your cauliflowered ear, how to know the difference between the smell of your own blood and that of your enemies, and most importantly, when to end. So this one is actually the title of this book, Rattlesnakes and Flat Tops. And this came from, after a long snowstorm, everybody here in the inner part of town was snowed in. And nobody could get out, and especially nobody could get down to the pool hall down here. And so this is about that first day after that week long of being snowed in, of all the barflies being able to come back to their regular spot and their joy of being able to connect with everybody again. And they're basically literally their stories that they were just telling in that same day. In the afternoon, the old flat tops and their wives sit around in the Pall Mall ashes of the night before, lamenting on snake bites from rattlesnakes, cotton mouths, and copperheads, showing off their scars to anyone with eyes to see, bragging about how death missed its chance. Tall tales from taller bar stools, the womb of great American folk tunes. Does anybody know Tonty Hall?
Yeah.
$20.
Tonty Hall. No. I hate. He's dead, so I mean, you're not gonna get your $20. But he's got a song called "Famous in Missouri," and this poem has nothing to do with that idea of what he's trying to convey about being somewhere else, some very far away place, like what he says, like the somewhere out on the plains in North Dakota, and he's talking about, he's like, you guys might not know who I am, but I'm famous. I'm famous in Missouri, all right? And this has nothing to do with that. She never swept a floor that didn't belong to her, and it was obvious. Sat behind a desk with a fairly good wage until they taped that foreclosure notice on the front door of the family home, lost her job to fill someone else's wallet. Now I'm watching her struggle to wrap that blue collar around her middle-aged neck, sweeping dust into circles on a concrete floor like she was swinging at lightning bugs with a baseball bat. So that, really what that is actually about is just, I've always kind of worked in blue-collar work, and especially in the last few years, I've watched all these people who've not been in the blue-collar field try to come in and I did this, I know Excel, I can sweep the floor, and apparently they fucking can't. So this one is called Back Road Pulpit. And I'm actually really excited to read a lot of these poems, because a lot of these poems are inspired about my time here. And Back Row Pulpit, every time I do read this or read over this, I think of this main strip that's right here. Purple lips click against tooth and tongue as I say, sail on my sweet blue canoe. Towards another sunset, towards mandolin daydreams of gravel grifters selling red brick by the pound, queens and kings of the tasty-free soft-serve, G-force banditos fermenting on this morning's kill, dive-bomb albino dragons without heads or tail for sense, talent culture vultures, Crete mosquitoes and crack pipe promoters, buzzing around like flies in an abandoned shithouse that something died in, with tiny wings like screeching TV static, waiting their turn to bless this flesh with maggots. But don't let the pale skin fool you. I'm far from dead and closer to heaven than ever. So I used to, I wish I could remember the name of the road, but I used to take this really windy road out to work in Vienna. And there was when I first started this job, I kept seeing this albino fawn. I kept seeing this albino fawn out there, and I was like, my family very much raised me on premonitions and like signs and omens and all that kinds of stuff. And I don't really necessarily believe in any of it, but I kept seeing this. I'd never seen an albino fawn before in my life. And I kept seeing them over and over again. And I think I'm in a place to where every time I told a redneck about it, they get so excited about trying to find it and kill it. And I'm like, there's no way. This has got to be a sign at some point. Something's got to be here. But this is called albino fawn. Follow the albino fawn into purgatory mist, into webbing branches of oak and cedar, through thorns and flowers that lap at the skin,
down Ozark valleys where the bodies are buried, and love was made for the first time with burning tongues ignited by homemade peach brandy. Now lost, and no sign of the cryptid, heaving chest inflates, and the heart jumps for the door. The sun begins to dip below the trees, snapping twigs, brush and briar, into the abyss you go. Push on until you forget what it was you were looking for in the first place.
You need to sell someone a license to hunt unicorns out here.
I'll just actually start putting like the party cone hats on deers and tell them it's unicorns. So the other part I actually forgot about that albino fawn thing is I was walking some random trail out by Bland, Missouri. Walking out there, I got lost right like the week leading up to Halloween. I got lost in the woods. I'm hearing shotguns going off in the distance. The sun is starting to set. The trail disappears from my feet, and I keep walking, and then I end up in an abandoned graveyard that was abandoned like 100, 200 years ago. And that's pretty much a lot of the influence is a mixture of those kind of two things. I never really wrote about that directly, but I said I was sorry, and then I kind of went back and tried to look for the trail again. So this next one is called Cy Goglin. I miss you, North Carolina. So Cy Goglin is an Appalachian term meaning askew. Something is a road is Cy Goggly, or something can be Cy Goglin. Like that guy over there was looking at me Cy Goggly. You know, he's looking at me crossways. Cattywampus. So it's an Appalachian cattywampus. It's Cy Goglin. And so I definitely feel something about this, like whenever I come out here, because North Carolina is one of the few places I feel a kinship to the land, and whenever I come out here, it's a very similar feeling. This mountain sings with plum trumpets from cove to valley. Creeks and streams bicker over the names of local foliage and ancient harmony. The brooks chatter amongst each other and just as pleased as punch that you stop by. Mesh port screens and more rooms than one rep me up all cozy like in the airish night. Frowns are fickle and hard to come by. Things don't change much in a place that moves this slow. The coffee is presented with a familiar grin, and the breakfast is cooked in pork fat. Later on, if you can't find your way home, just pay attention to the gaslight. So this next one, let me see. You know, I'm going to do this one instead of this one first. So so a lot of things that took inspiration out of being out here. I took these like headline notes. Take these headline notes, and I'm like, okay, this is eventually gonna turn into a poem. This one line will be a poem. This line will be a poem. This line will be a poem. And then eventually, like, I read all these headlines to somebody, and they're just like, that's a fucking poem. So I just kind of, so it's called, another one, this is also called Famous in Missouri / Headlines from a Notebook. And these are all things that I've either heard, seen, or just all the above in living out here. Yes, so anyway. Missouri will let you down. Missouri is only temporary. Crack fox in a hen house. Gas was $6.66, and the attendant added a penny for just a peace of mind. This morning, I found a wasp in my sandals. Hard to find an ashtray during pool league. Don't worry, he's at the best rehab that money could buy. Superstition, one-horse pony. Where have all the buffalo gone? My ex-husband burned my house down. St. Drogo, local yokel, honky-tonk angel. An old porch hound tries to remember the girls and the rivers he sought after so long ago. Martyrs and gas station oracles. At what point does a cosplay turn into a militia? If you want to ask me about any of those lines, I would love to tell you about each and every one of them, because they're all in there, and they're some of my favorite stories. And they, at one point, I actually tried to turn it into more of a poem, and then I was like, nah, it's good. So this next one is called Undertow, and a lot of it really just means, has to do with respecting the rivers and all that kinds of stuff. And this is another story of what I heard from working and living out here. Just, somebody's brother was gigging late at night, and they got taken by the water. The rest is history. It's called Undertow. Skipping belches across green glass, cider poured over braised dermis, cook me slow, sweet river, make me tender. Jumping fish snatched dragonflies, mid-flight over Dresden, the closest they will ever get to heaven. Dive from starboard to nab that new hat, floating towards a destination unknown. Pour mass into rubber boots, last time I seen him, he was with you. Let's see. A couple more here. So this one's called Thanks for the Memories, Kid. I don't really have any stories for this. One day your looks will leave you, empty their closet into robin egg blue leather suitcases covered with stickers from Tahiti, Paris, and Budapest, adding years and parcels neatly folded one by one into bags slowly over the course of decades, days, and moments. Every once in a while, glancing over from the bathroom mirror just to check and see if you noticed the years digging deeper into your eye sockets. But you were too busy, soaking up the attention and praise, to realize it was already too late. They had long left without saying a word, leaving nothing behind but a note on the kitchen table that says, "Thanks for the memories, kid." Right. And then this one's called Margaritaville. You all like Margaritaville, right? Jimmy Buffett. So, old club kids sing Margaritaville at Applebee's on Thursdays. It's just to feel something. To remember what it was like before Rome burned to the ground, before it all went wrong, when time was all that we had, and the last thing on our minds was Roger Stone. And this one I'm going to leave you with. This last one I'm going to leave you with here. It's called Anywhere Else But Here. I got to get out of here. I got to split town, break my bones on some sorry side of a mountain. I've seen it before in an episode of Barb, on a Rousseau framed in flowers. Some premonition, some gift of distant reason, tangled in the wire on its way to the horizon. I look out the window and see someone I used to know from when I was a pup, from those long summer nights of kicking cans in alleyways. He was laid out on the bus bench. His leg was gone, and his head bounced like a bobber, floating at the end of a fishing line, dozing onwards and upwards, so towards something just beyond the city limits. Hitchhiking his way across the skyline, dreaming of somewhere else, some green pasture, some sweet release from brick-colored fate. We both got lost on our way out, our feathers now turned to roots. Each morning yawns another chance to start again, another chance to lose it all. I turn back to the screen and search for plane tickets to anywhere else but here. Thanks, guys.
John Dorsey, do you dare brave the mic? Mic stand.
Mic stand is good when you don't know what the hell you're gonna read.
That is a good one. Yeah, that's probably a good one.
All right. I'd like to be a substantial target. I'm gonna start with this poem. That's an old one that I wrote for my great grandmother. I was a newspaper reporter for a long time. At one point, my boss told me we had teamed up with Make-A-Wish, and they wanted to get a poet to write a poem that they could team up with a singer, and they were going to record it and then put it on a benefit album. And I was part of that, and this was my poem. This is a true story. It's called Christmas Cookies. When we were kids, my mom would force my brother and I into visiting her grandmother on Christmas morning. Half blind with 5 o'clock shadow, she would tell us stories about how when she was a girl, she dated Perry Como. That once he had taken her on a carriage ride to watch the snow fall. He was a nice boy. He didn't try anything, she'd sigh in half regret. She was what my father referred to as a sturdy woman. Hard to get your arms around at the age of 7. I remember her face was rough, like Rocky Marciano after a prize fight. When it was time to leave, she would give us Christmas cookies, wrapped in tissue paper, hidden next to mothballs in her underwear drawer for extra holiday flavor. She demanded a kiss on each cheek. Now, every time I touch sandpaper, I feel nostalgic. And my mom always asked me to show her that poem, and to this day I have not, because I never know quite how she'll react to it. This is I'll read this poem, but not right now. Okay. Read some slightly newer poems. This is a poem about the only. I've been a best man at weddings twice in my life. And this is a poem about the only wedding I've ever been to where the wedding party went to the bar before the wedding. So, this is called A Summer Wedding at Ermey's Lounge, which is in West Toledo. If you ever feel like going there and like NASCAR posters, that's the place for you. Okay. Before we ever got to the church, the entire wedding party pulled the limos up in front of the bar because somebody's great aunt's third cousin had left an open tab, and the sun seemed to pour in from outside and reflect off 1,000 different NASCAR posters that lined the walls, even as it rained outside. I went into the bathroom and did lines off the toilet seat just to prove I was still cliche enough to be there. But being the wisest man in a hillbilly soap opera is hardly a moral victory. Piss drunk before noon and not quite high enough to love ourselves, we should have stayed there. Where a stripper with gap teeth played pool and sang "Let's Get Drunk and Screw," as her lungs filled with hope in the shape of a coffin. And it was the most honest thing I've ever heard. And God was in full view. And we exchanged vows with a shot glass set on fire, as holy as any church and as beautiful as any summer flower in search of light. I grew up in a trailer park, and I've written a ton of trailer park poems, and I'm going to put them all in a book one day, but I wrote this poem. It's called The Double Wide Book of the Dead. And it's the title poem, this little chapbook that I did. The Double Wide Book of the Dead. Our house wasn't nearly that big, with its cheap plaster walls, where I cover my bedroom with posters of long-forgotten 80s hair bands, and built a temple to suburban poverty with awful ghost stories scribbled into yellow legal pads, with awful poems about pale girls scribbled into yellow legal pads. It was all dull ink and Saturday morning cartoons and reduced lunch tickets with peanut butter sandwiches and tomato soup every day, and dreams hidden away in pencil boxes, and coins tossed into shopping mall fountains, and girls with hips as wide as jelly bracelets. You could only corral so many spirits into such a tight space, until the dead started to look like you, like your mom or your dad, when they were your age, when they looked for answers in sad songs too, and broken houses, where the dead had more room to roam and stretch their legs and dance. I've read this poem before, but not everyone here has heard it. When I was a kid, there was an older kid at the trailer park when I was about 7 or 8 who was in high school, who would walk all the little kids home, including me, and all of the neighbors banned against him and said he was a Satanist, which was completely not true. He just liked black t-shirts. And by that algorithm, Jason Ryberg is the Satanist, like, you know, the black t-shirts. But it's just a poem about judging people. And if you grew up in the 80s, if you were into Dungeons and Dragons, you were Satanist. Now it's wildly popular. But I wrote this poem called For Paul Who Worships Satan and Dungeons and Dragons. I never saw you dismember any animals or play a record backward to send our young souls to a dimension filled with fire. As far as I know, you didn't even have a vinyl collection. All I remember is you being kind to the younger kids, walking them up from the bus stop to make sure they got home all right. But it was a crime to be quiet in 1984. Maybe if you spent less time smoking in the woods behind the trailer park, maybe you should have combed your hair or not worn a faded Black Sabbath t-shirt on the bus without regret as you stared out the window. Maybe you should have gone to church or listened to the news, or listened when the news talked about how a fantasy game took lives. As if war in suburbia didn't suck the air right out of the room all by themselves. The least you could have done is finish high school and hang yourself from a tree in a different neighborhood. You know, sometimes I read that poem and people don't know what to do. They're like, should we applaud that or what? But it's a true story, so to each their own. It's a little too bleak after another bleak poem, so I'm trying to find something that's a little less so. All right, this is a short poem, and I like this poem. Everyone who knows me knows that I love fried chicken. And since they put me on a diabetic diet, I can't really eat much fried chicken. But I used to take it in my pocket at the movies. Like I carry it in a coat, and then people could smell it. And they'd be like, wow, this guy's life is so much better than mine. It's fantastic. And so I wrote this poem. There's a movie that came out in the late 90s called The House of Yes, which is where the title comes from. This is called a fried chicken sandwich in the House of Yes. Everyone in the theater looks at you with envy, with your oversized pockets, holding a fried chicken sandwich close to your heart, like the warm hands of a lover with a flower pinned in her hair. You know, and a fried chicken sandwich won't leave you. It won't.
Hopefully eventually.
Well, sometimes, you know, everything comes out the hard way, right? I'm trying to remember. Yeah, Jason was with me, I think, about 5 years ago. I was in St. John, Kansas, and I met a woman there named Rosalia, who is homeless, and she lives in her van, and she's a Holocaust survivor. She's got literally has the numbers on her arm, and it's a fucking crime after everything she's been through that she has to live in a van. But she, in the 60s, she owned a hotel in Harper, Kansas, where she housed artists for free. And the people there, like, threw rocks at her, ran her out of town. And she runs her own paper now called The Prairie Connection. But I did a bunch of poems about, like, the prettiest women I saw in any particular town, and by that I meant like either beautiful on the outside or beautiful on the inside. And she's definitely, like, maybe at one time she was both, but I think she's a beautiful person. So I wrote this poem. It's called The Prettiest Girl in Harper, Kansas. The prettiest girl in Harper, Kansas sleeps in a van in front of the courthouse, covered in newspapers and political pins for long-lost causes. Shivering through the night, the same wind that used to hug her hips now just drifts slowly by without even blowing a kiss in her direction. She was the sweetheart of 1968, burning her bra in 1,000 dreams of dying cornfields as a form of protest. They threw rocks through her windows, and once they learned how to build fire in the snow, they shook beatniks from the trees with a lit match and ran her right out of town into the future. Read a few more poems. Yeah, this is a stark poem, but this is a true story too. I had a friend for several years who was a phone sex operator. I don't even know if that's a thing now. But she used to put her calls on speakerphone and let me listen to them when she would cook dinner. And yeah, this is just a regular caller she used to get, and some people really deserve to burn in hell. And so I'll read the poem. But this is called Marissa Was an Unsung Hero. Marissa was an unsung hero, making mango chicken in the kitchen where we had her calls on speakerphone. As one of her regulars described what he wanted to do to her instead of doing it to his 5-year-old daughter. Sitting on the edge of her bed while she slept, uncertain of what to do in the silence, while he got up for a glass of water, pacing the room with its flower-patterned walls, tripping over the torso of a nude plastic doll. Nobody ever said phone sex saves lives. Maybe they should have. Or maybe it just postpones the future, like paint peeling off the walls of a dollhouse engulfed in flames. I haven't lived until I totally depressed everyone. All right, I'll read a little poem about Missouri. It's, when you live out in the woods, you become far too liberal about where you're willing to just drop trowel and go to the bathroom at any moment and pee. Jason knows what I'm talking about. This is called In Missouri. It is your God-given right to pee anywhere you like. In Missouri, it is your God-given right to pee anywhere you like, into an overgrown field of dandelions that take us back into the past, alongside a parked car on some makeout mountain, where our parents made their first youthful mistakes, written in the constitution of a younger man's imagination. That mischievous flair for youthful abandon still showing on our guilty, dirt-smudged faces. The kind of songs where nobody has to say they're sorry for watering the grass. Read like two more. Which two am I going to do? Actually, I don't love it. Okay. I wrote these cancer poems. There's, people like them. There's only one that I really, really like. So that's the one I'll read. So cancer song number 3. I don't want to eat like a bird, words coming and going in small bites. I want to think about girls I once knew sitting in the sun, becoming poems with bronze skin, becoming mothers with wide arms. I want to dream of them all. I want to swallow whole years of my past. finish with this. I was going to read a poem about my friend's baby. It's a really sweet little poem, but I'll read this along. Okay. You know, if you've been through Belle for any period of time, you know they do the Belle Fair every summer. Mark, when is the Belle Fair this year?
It's the last weekend of June that spills into July.
Well, like 1 year at the Belle Fair, I was with Nolan, and I don't even remember what year this was. But, you know, it was normal, it was average, like I've been a few times, but there was a pregnant girl on the end of her lawn wearing a Tupac Shakur shirt. And the only thing odd about that is that Belle's population is like 99.9% white. And my question was, where the hell did she get that shirt? And so I like to imagine where it came from. And this is what this is about. And this is East Coast, West Coast in southern Missouri. A high school girl with thick black glasses and a baby bump barely concealed by a second-hand Tupac t-shirt stands on the front of her lawn as a volunteer fireman who didn't make it past the 9th grade throws candy in her direction. With a pitching arm that will never take him any further than the next county over. A love story held together with tape, like the glasses, peeling in the summer sun. Candy corn at her feet like stray bullets in a gang war, in a music video that will last the rest of her life. A baby under each arm, pacing east and west, a drive-by that goes in circles leading nowhere, always in rivalry with possibility. Maybe the old owner of the shirt fed the hungry, danced in an empty swimming pool, and swore there was music that nobody else could hear. Or maybe she actually saw who killed Tupac and Biggie both, and never said a word, because there was peace in just letting things go, like the boy who placed the shirt over her shoulders as she shivered, taking what she hadn't offered to begin with. Because when you wash out the blood stains, all you're left with is your own heartbreak, standing on your front lawn, wearing someone else's dream, shrunken down so many times with wrinkles that you can never quite smooth out, until you're almost invisible, with a snow cone melting down your arm, in the sun, bleeding red, white, and blue, as a single sock, fresh out of the dryer, sticks to your belly, and that's the best part of your day. Jason Ryberg.
Opinions on break?
Okay.
Or right into the...
Pity, John. I was going to say, babies depressed me. You want me to depress them?
What's that?
You said you were going to read a poem about friend's baby. I was about to say, babies depressed me.
I
Missed
mean,
an opportunity, man.
they're so cute, and nothing else looks that good.
Well, I guess we're going to take a bit of a break and then be back for the open mic. And there are books for sale out on this table.
did you come across that Miller High letter? That's exciting.
Conjured it.
See,
I didn't know how she.
you are magical. So.
Just the right way so it makes.
I wish I would have known we could have drinks.
Ken
Next
did
time.
one.
Do you want some water?
Like origami poems. There's a website.
Let them know ahead of time. Jason will mix you a
That was
drink.
We'll have martinis next time.
Origami poems.
Very
No,
dry.
Manhattans.
Okay, Manhattans.
Come on.
I think before we start poeticizing again, Mark McLean would like to come up
That is also poeticized.
and of a sort.
Always.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Barb's Book. New faces, welcome. Old friends, thanks for returning. This was a special night because Mac and Jason are running off on tour, which is great to start that. So this is kicking that off. But this space always to me feels like a family. It feels like your family, we hope. And it's lovely because new work is shared here, and then old favorites are shared here too. So sincerely, thank you for being here, and thanks for returning. Jason.
Sharon Singing Moon. Am I doing that properly? Okay.
You got it.
And everybody in the neighborhood of 5-ish minutes or less.
I marked 2 poems for you from my recent book, which I have a couple of copies always in the car, you know. Oops. Gotta get the glasses. The name of this poem is Pork Chop Bones. While in the bathroom one morning, I heard a scratching and banging near the window. I looked out to see a large blue jay digging up the dirt in the window box. When I went outside to see just what that jay was up to, I found a dried out pork chop bone strategically placed in the center of the bare window box soil. I'm not sure about the germination period for pork chops, or even if they will thrive in a window box. But if this thing blooms, expect an invitation to a barbecue this summer. Anyone with experience cultivating pork chops in a window box, please contact me. And I want to read my very favorite poem. This poem was gifted to me in a vision, and it was inspired by a Navajo warrior named Jackson, who I met when I was living in a small river town. And the railroad company had hired these native men, and they were living in boxcars and working on the tracks. And I had spent a lot of time with the American Indian movement people in the 80s, the kind of the radical of the native people. And so I had a lot of artifacts laying around my house. And I offered the young men a laundry service because I lived in that small river town. And that's how I met Jackson. And he was hanging out at my house. And anyway, he inspired this poem. When you're ready to hear, you will hear. For the music is in the wind and the sand, the sage and the cedar. The medicine is in you. When you're ready to sing, you will sing. For the song is the air that we breathe, and the earth mother's love, and the beat of your blood. The medicine is in you. When you're ready to beat the drum, the rhythm will come as the sound of your steps on the path of your life, as a roaring in your ears. The medicine is in you. When you're ready to dance, you will remember the dance as the dance you've been walking for lifetimes uncounted, and dreams manifested, and lessons begat of those dreams. The medicine is in you. When you are ready to dance, you will remember the dance as the dance you've been walking for lifetimes uncounted, and dreams manifested, and lessons begat of those dreams. The medicine is in you. The medicine is in you. The medicine is in you. For letting me be part of your group.
Beautiful.
Ray Swaney.
All right, let's get Kisadic.
You what?
I got 3, and just don't have to clap at all if you don't want. I'll just do them, and I'll go from there. I was going to start with that. Oh yeah, nothing I fulfilled, not to misunderstand. Divided we stand, further than groups. Cherche Trave, I drink in gulps. I ride Napa Valley cabs and shower in the Badlands. Shepherds of tofu, lemming our dreams. Varmints of fate, nickel and crumb away, saying one thing unto another, I can do better. Showering, letting the warm water wash over like untrained thoughts, soft-bearded and teen-stashed, I set sentences forward from my behind. The dogs of war have never shut up or stopped fucking each other. The doves of peace leave wet blueberry stains on my hybrid. Intelligent confusion is an idiotic truth, the blinding power of blind submission, bound, gagged, freed and shouting, tied to your saving grace, your whipping post, a toast to the base pouting. Aligned with confusion, free refills, buffet of the soul, oh life kills. Be the saint, quaint and dirty, thieving graves and donating newborns. Science will wrap it up. Religion will wrap it up. Philosophy will wrap it up with fat dissection fingers. Blood on butcher paper. Minds pound nails through once free hands onto the black or white of nothingness. Winds serpentine, sun's pirouette, the mind's minuet, a mirror fiending. A feather from Poland lands in the hands of a cat who'd lost his fishing pole. The Vistula flows. Amsel scares crows. Danzig is dancing upon my ears. Gdansk, grass is cut short in America. Sensual rhythms of drum come near. Kicks war and fear square in the square. Hussars and Mennonites, shimmy shimmy all to the storms of night. Men in braids dance like boars. Wild women sans pockets, don't fight or hoard. War gives you syphilis, peace dementia. Agog in fatigues and tired of freshmen. I fall down and down the rabbit hole. Don't grab onto the roots, for the roots won't hold me. I am Canaanite. Baal is nothing on Mott, and I have nothing on death. I have on good faith, though, heard our bodies will rot in fertilized breath. Down, push down. Dancing tumble of air, a bumbling stumble of hair. The keys unlock new mazes, a morning face smiles. Fairy dust shook from eye. We phased the moon, a black eye patch's rough, ocean-shifting turbulence to the foundation. A hit and run by the forgotten with love from tomorrow's birthday party. The Eddie Medley carried me out to the road, open vein, to the guitar strumming on and on, swerving in and out twixt lanes to the lowest point below blood level, where all tears collect to the birth of ecstatic celebration, where every color looks like light. Push down. A whisper into skin already riddled with phantasmagoria. a warm embrace of a cold pilgrim. All right. All, as always, or the nature of synthetics. Then again, there is a time when the filter is so porous that the divine leaks through the needles of light through the skin of your wear, or the skin of air you wear, the air of effortless aptitude. One man's esoteric queef is another's beef of reality. Just try and watch that stanza from your subconscious underpants. Text in parentheses. Subclause poet's clown, writing with despairing reappearing ink upside down. Then again, there is a time when a poet jumps out of your cake, carrying a six-pack whiskey, butts, and badly rolled J's on the lowest day of the year, playing the first 3-wire albums on a Casio boombox, framed in chrome with a pirate flag flying from the retractable antenna, with seemingly endless breath running alongside sentences over the shag carpet and into the hot tub. One woman's sentence ending period is another's foot massage with a glass of red and a Harry Potter. My yellow bicycle has furry handlebars and seat. My bicycle enjoys fame sought by those of us trying to be. I could take the Cherry Valley route. I could dive in the back of a pickup truck, but I took Taken Will, my yellow bicycle of freedom, up to the top of the next page furling. All my lines roll downhill. My gears don't need no turning. Oops! This stanza took a spill. Then again, there is a time when the mind is oh so blank that pages bleed black blood, blessings of thankless night, bodies fighting back, doing it out in the road and in bottled hemlock, trying to get it right. One man's little death is a woman's seed of life. Pheromones saturate the afternoon delight of the bedroom living dead. A new form of human immune to birth control will come, advocating the right to die and freedom from sin. Then again. Thank you.
Mindi R.
I've never done this before, so thank you all for being part of this experience.
Thank you.
I'm not a poet. I write essays mostly, and I've been working with vignettes. So I have a couple vignettes I'd like to share. This one is from my most recent publication. It's a zine that I do about getting sober. This one came out in March. On a sunny Saturday afternoon, Nick and I were indulging a post-meeting excursion. Walking across a gas station parking lot, I received a phone call like an expired time bomb. My mom's voice said, "Kyle's dead," and the wind was knocked out of me. I staggered over to the side of the building and leaned against it. I felt sick and limbless because the appendage that is my mother's tiny body was not in my embrace. "Oh, Mom, where are you?" is what came out of my mouth. She was at her house, and so was my dead brother, Lou, on the kitchen floor. As I choked in air, doubled over with my hands on my knees, I told her I would get on a plane as soon as possible. The coroner arrived. I got off the phone. I walked slow motion through a thick fog inside because before this phone call, I wanted coffee. I put coffee in a cup and panicked for a million years in search of a lid. I never used lids. As I secured the lid, my eyes were blurry, and I concluded this was the stupidest cup of coffee in the world. Somehow I found myself at the counter, and the clerk was talking to my friend I couldn't see. I looked over my shoulder, and one of my favorite humans, who was more than 50 years old and more than 6 feet tall, was holding a spinning light-up baton as high in the air as he could get it. I was able to breathe again. I was proud to have this man as a friend. He is an atheist, but the sight of his long, lanky arm holding this spinning light-up toy to the ceiling of a gas station in Waldo at the same time my brother was being zipped into a body bag is all the proof of God I need. This one is one I wrote a few years ago. I made the scene for my best friend while we were breaking up, and best friend breakup is more painful than any romantic breakup I've ever had. It's called Forgiveness. I felt like an octopus as I lie on my back after giving birth to my 10-pound, 2-ounce baby. Totally naked and covered in multiple body fluids, I had a midwife at each side, 2 gynecological surgeons between my legs. On my sternum lay the first baby I had ever held. Chants of "your cervix is a blossoming rose" became "the vagina is very forgiving." I covered my baby's newborn ears as I screamed, in more pain than when a human was emerging from my inside-out organs. 8 months later, I sat in a sunny dining room at a table across the country in Portland, Oregon. My son's grandmother was teaching me how to knit stitches of yarn on a wooden needle. I struggled and she encouraged me. Knitting is very forgiving. As I fumbled to generate the small, soft knots, I was reminded of the time I was an octopus. How forgiving the vagina is after 2 people put their heads and their hands together to create 55 stitches. They said, "Don't worry, most of them are on the inside." What does that even mean? I was determined to learn the stitch. I wanted to burn it into my brain like it had effectively been burned into my body. My teacher on this sunny spring day grew up in Sweden, being forced to knit in grade school. The first project was mittens in about 2nd grade. Her mom survived the Holocaust because of knitting. My kid's great-grandmother, who is still alive and has more Instagram followers than I do, told Nazi soldiers who had killed her whole family down the line in a firing squad that they should spare her. It was cold, and she noticed the soldiers wore no socks. Upon consultation of superior officers, it was decided she remain alive, a concentration camp prisoner knitting socks for the Nazi war effort. This skill is an honor. I am proud that my best friend has it. Here's to the bond of empowerment to survive. Thank you.
Gierke.
All right, I'm gonna read one from Glass of Wash, my poetry collection, and it's one that I have not read anywhere. And I put it, looking back on it, it's like it's totally out of place with the rest of the poems, but the reason it went in there was to kind of ignore the morbidity that was around it, so, yeah. Thoughts without voice. Noodles instead of rice. Does that recipe call for ginger or turmeric? Climbing the backyard hill hurts her hips. It's time for a visit to the vet. You can have your equal rights. Just don't deny their right to deny them. Rain is predicted for this weekend. I should take the kayak out today. That pension cut is going to make things tight. Fuel points for buying groceries. The logic escapes me. A winter without snow. Go figure. I need new tires before next winter. Fixed in place for 40 years, the mortar turned to dust. This time a dovetail in all respects. Wave the flag and close the borders. Has anyone thought of that? So, yes, that actually has a little love poem quotient to it. All right, so I started a blog in 2014 to answer National Poetry Writing Month, and that got me writing again because I wasn't writing enough. And this is a poem that once I started writing again, this is from April 2014. Dream Eclipsed. Verses flow in a steady stream, or so it seems, until I wake with a start, part of me wondering where the words could have gone. Long ago, I realized this feeling was nothing new. Few of the images survive those waking moments that follow an unsettled sleep. Keeping just a small part of those thoughts is no small task. Grasping for details leads nowhere, each fading with each passing moment. In my dream, I was writing, this time, about the moon. More wan than blood red, fed by Earth's shadow, still fresh in my mind, after keeping a date late in the night with camera and sky. Now, photos that please me, tease me with ever-fading words, turning that ever-fading vision into verse, seems less likely than any dream coming to life. And thank you. I got to know some really great people at WordPress, and reading their poetry, and I'm reading mine. And one person in particular became a very good friend, and we ended up exchanging emails. And I asked him for advice when I was actually getting this together 5 years ago. So yeah, and I mentioned him in here. And that's Robert Okaji. He was in Austin, Texas at the time, and I'd never met him. But then he moved to Indianapolis to be with the woman he ended up marrying, Stephanie Harper, because she was going there for an MFA. And he says, if wherever you go, I'll go. And that's where they ended up, and they got married. And I just found out a week and a half ago that he has late-stage cancer. It's pretty serious. And so this is sort of dedicated to him. I wrote this the other day because of the advice he gave me. Replenished. A vessel waits to be filled. Volume to be determined even as words are dispensed. Hold it close to your heart so that it may hold a part of you, yet at arm's length to offer to others. Keep yourself open to their words as they drink from it, adding their perspective to your benefit. So, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, one of those intros longer than the poem. And I was talking to John the other day about, seeing church steeples. I'm not religious, I'm atheist. But I just, the sight of them is really inspiring, and I just, I don't know, it's the lines, and I guess it's the photographer in me too. And there are a couple of them between here and Jefferson City that stand out. So this is one of my music driving with poems. And the musician is Donald Byrd. He's a trumpeter. And his piece, Christo Redentor. So that's the title of the poem, Christo Redentor. A haunting chorale laced with sonorous chords leads me through winding hills to deliver me into a narrow valley that holds Westphalia, where a church spire high on a hill rises from surrounding trees to be seen by all those who pass on the highway below, both wayward and devout. As I leave that steeple behind, Donald Byrd's trumpet, slow and almost sultry, moves in, dances with those voices, and Duke Pearson's piano teases, seems to offer a revelation. Rich Fountain lies just down the road, waits to follow suit. Its church, again, totally obscured above me, save the lines of its spire rising above the trees. When the road from there opens to a wide valley, I almost expect to see Sugarloaf Mountain on the horizon with the arms of Christ, the Redeemer, opened wide, expecting me to come home. Once baptized, that boat long since capsized. I still know all the rituals, mouth the words at weddings and funerals, though I know they'll never be uttered at mine. As if knowing that ship has sailed, trumpet, piano, and chorale fade into the distance as I head down the road to Belle.
Agnes?
Okay, so Jason gave me the copy of the new Gasconade, so I figure I start with one poem from that, unless we're doing a thing, reading from the book, all of us.
We're talking about it.
Oh, well, then I read again. So, every time you leave, you take a sliver of my heart. You back out of the driveway in your little red car. I stand by the garage and wave. Then I step quickly inside so you won't be distracted when you turn onto the street. I walk upstairs, pull the sheets off your bed, collect your towels. I find a lone white sock on the floor and one of your vegan yogurts left in the fridge. I eat some cold pasta, watch the clock, wait for the phone to ring. This is new shit.
New shit. New shit.
The old fairy. Like a beached whale, she lies on the shore. The motor hangs down her side like a limp fin. The brass bell dulled like a lifeless eye. The ferryman has crossed over the final river. He is not coming back. After Labor Day, the tourists have departed with their boom boxes and coolers, left behind beer cans, sunscreen bottles, and silence. The boys who stacked boats all summer have gone back to school, tanned with broader shoulders, a season closer to manhood. The girl who sold smiles and ice cream has gone too, with the memory of kissing a boy with sun-bleached hair one evening down by the river. The blue rafts are deflated and packed away. A lone canoe is lying on the landing, like an old turtle who has seen much and knows how to survive through winter. And we're reading one more, and this was part of one of the professor at our school who teaches a poetry class had an ekphrastic project when paired with a class of artists at AMSL, so that each of the poetry students got to work on one artwork of the AMSL students, and one student had dropped the class, and there was one extra piece of artwork. And she asked me if I would do the ekphrastic poem, and it was a gorgeous piece of art. There were two African people sitting back to each other, and between them was this big tall sunflower growing, and there were symbols for the chakras, and it was a very pretty poem, and I had to write a very pretty painting, and I had to write a poem based on the painting, and here it is, of being whole. The people asked the healer, "Speak to us of being whole," and the healer spoke. "You are grounded in earth. Let your roots reach deep and anchor you, for the plant that is rooted securely can unfold to blossom, and the house with a firm foundation will withstand the tempest. You are creatures of desire. Do not shrivel your soul by denying joy. See, the butterflies among the blossoms do not deny themselves nectar, and the grass does not abstain from rain, that it may grow and flourish. You are heirs to your ancestors' wisdom. Trust that it lies inside you, as the crystal lies in the belly of the mountain, waiting to be brought up from the deep fires, to show its full power by splitting the light into colors. You are yearning to love as a sunflower yearns to grow. Pour compassion and forgiveness to others and also yourself, like a gentle rain that cleanses the air, softens the soil, and washes the world green. You are given the gift of voice, that you may sing and speak truth, for even the trees speak to one another in a whisper of wind, an exchange of molecules, and so they care for each other and live in community. You are seeing beyond the visible. Close your eyes and become still. When the stone sinks into the pond and the ripples subside on the surface, the water lies unperturbed and clear and reveals what is beneath. You are part of the divine. See the monks make a mandala from colored sand, sweep it up, and pour the sand into the river. so it will go with you. But the pattern you made with your life will have been beautiful. And the feeling of peace settled over the crowd, and the voice started singing. Thank you.
Is it Jossalyn?
Yo, yes.
Jossalyn Larson.
Yes, it's me. Hi, hello. This is my, I don't know why I brought $1 up here. Tipping myself. Hi, this is my first time here at Barb's Books. I'm so excited. This is a great community. I've read with a few of you before. And Agnes has really been my inspiration for getting me writing again. She's been inviting me to these circles and giving me all the reasons to start to express in writing. And recently, I've been trying to think of how to get out of writer's block, because Agnes told me at one point I was going through something and I was like, my writing is so prolific, it's just coming out of me. And she's like, just wait until you heal and then it's gonna get harder. And she's right. So we've been talking a lot about how to generate poetry and you know, tricks you can do. And one of the things that I've been trying to do is answer some poems that I've written earlier in my life, right? Because poetry is just like a snapshot of how you're feeling at a particular time. So that's what I've been working on. So I've got one of these prepared for you. And this actually wasn't written too long ago, but it was before a significant change in my life. So I thought I'd read the original poem and then my response. All I want is to lift you up, to praise you so high that your traumas float away weightless. All I want is to lift you up until the clamor of the world harmonizes into gentle hymns and you hear my voice among the angels. All I want is to lift you up, but I reach for you and you recoil. Retreat into your head where your demons wear my face. All I want is to lift you up, but I'm falling and I cannot catch myself because my hands are reaching for you and we both know the ground is imminent. Okay, so that was the first one. This is my response now that I'm here. Do you remember when I said all I wanted was to lift you up? Do you remember when I fell, hoping until the last second that you'd catch me? I wonder sometimes if you ever marvel at the imprint that my body left on your bedroom floor. If the blood from my palms still discolors your floorboards. But only sometimes. Because when I hit the ground, I blacked out. And my memory was erased. And I forgot why I was ever reaching for you at all. Okay, so this last one was just something I did for fun. So I'm an English professor, and everybody's freaking out about ChatGPT, right? Oh, ChatGPT! So I started playing with it, and I wanted to see what it can produce. And so I asked it to write me a poem, and as you can imagine, it was horrible. It was pretty awful. So I wrote a poem, kind of in response to ChatGPT. I asked the machine to write a poem describing how I feel. The machine spat back in rhyming couplets, shadows and echoes and bombs and wildfires, a wastebasket of illusions repeated by imbeciles. Not a single syllable pricked that tender, open wound that pulsates in my soul. Because no algorithm can recreate the way my hair stands on end when another human speaks my truth. No digital sonnet can charge me in 10-point font the way I am charged by your texted hello.
Nice.
think that's it for tonight. Thank you everybody for coming out.
Good job.
Yeah. And
June 17th, 4 p.m. Be here for the torture. We'll be here all day. Be here all day.
Oh, is it the long haul?
That is the long haul.
Yeah.
Only 70 readers.
Only 70.
And then mark your calendars for June 20th in Rolla. We'll have Julian King as the feature, and it will only last about an hour and a half.
With air conditioning.
With air conditioning.
And terrible steps. Terrible steps.
Oh, yes, those are some steps.
It's one trade off or the other. It's either the steps or the
Much-
air conditioning.
Much better here. This is
John,
on one level.
You come with
All
me,
of them.
get an adult baby Bjorn, I'll take you up.
I'll hold you to
Yeah,
that.
I'm sorry about the steps, but Rolla is
I'll carry you.
short on spaces.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you, John.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank you.
thank
Thank you,
guys.
Mac.
Have a good tour.
it's like
It's a